Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Saturday, September 6th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 619 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are previewing the New York Jets Week 1 matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have finally made it, the offseason, training camp, preseason. It is finally over. Football is here, and just a little over 24 hours from this recording, the New York Jets will be playing the Pittsburgh Steelers out at MetLife Stadium. I will be in the building tomorrow. Cannot wait, fired up for the start of another Jets season, the first with Aaron Glenn. It's a new era here for the New York Jets as they'll face off against, of course, Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers in this matchup. Today, as we always do, we'll give you the roadmap to victory for the New York Jets. What do the Jets need to do to come away with the victory here in the season opener, in the home opener? What does Aaron Glenn and this team need to do to pick up his first win here in his first regular season game? We'll take a look at offense and defensive keys, X factors offensively and defensively, matchups to watch in offense and defense, and of course my prediction coming at the end. But before we dive into all of that, just some general overall thoughts here on today's matchup, or tomorrow's matchup rather, between the Jets and the Steelers. Of course, a game that does not lack any storylines. You have the Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields storyline, two quarterbacks that flip teams. Justin Fields, a Pittsburgh Steeler last year, Aaron Rodgers the last two seasons with the New York Jets. Ultimately, a time in history with the Jets that we'll look back on as just another blip in the radar, another failed experiment, and both Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers will be looking for revenge against their former teams here. Fields last year, 4-2 as a starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers, pulled for Russell Wilson and signs on this offseason with the Jets, leaving Pittsburgh, which opened up the door for Rodgers to sign on there late in the offseason. The biggest thing, the big story for the Jets, and then just some other things from a Steelers perspective, Aaron Glenn's debut. Aaron Glenn era officially beginning tomorrow afternoon out at MetLife Stadium. You want to hopefully see this team start to build an identity, build the foundation, start to see a legitimate culture shift on the field. Glenn has pressed all the right buttons this offseason, training camp, preseason, even going back to the spring, the way he's carried himself in the press conferences. Everything has gone right for Aaron Glenn so far, but at the end of the day, what matters most is what you do on the field, and this team has to win football games. The way you change cultures at the end of the day is by winning football games, playing competitive football, and really showing that you're making consistent progress as the year progresses. And you're legitimately making strides in areas that this team have struggled in the last couple of years, not even just the last couple of years, really this entire drought when it comes to physicality, stopping the run, not being able to run the football, all these different things that we talk about that this New York Jets team needs to do this year. You want to see those things start to happen. And from the Steelers' perspective, you have the Aaron Rodgers story, but this is also a big year for them as well, as a team that has their eyes set on the playoffs, potentially something bigger. Mike Tomlin, that coaching staff, how much time do they have left? The Steelers team, right, that hasn't won a playoff game in a while. They've been one and done these last couple of seasons, so they look here to start off on a high note. Aaron Rodgers, in what possibly is his final season, looks to start out on a high note. So you have two teams, changes in many areas, new look rosters in many areas for these two teams. You have the quarterback storyline. You have the Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Glenn meeting. That didn't go well. You have that storyline in this game. A lot to look for. Two teams that will look to obviously open up 1-0, and you hope from the Jets' perspective, they're the ones that do that tomorrow afternoon. And there's a legitimate path to victory here for the Jets. Just some other general notes here before we get into what the New York Jets need to do on the field tomorrow to pick up a win. When you look at the spread, you look at the projections and how this game looks from the betting perspective. Right now, the Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Over under set at 37.5. Not to spoil my prediction, but I do like the under in this game. I think this is going to be a low-scoring defensive battle, not only just because these two defenses I expect to be the strong units in this game, and for both these teams will be the strong units all year long, but you also have two offenses that you should expect to see a considerable amount of rust. You're going to see some slower starts from the Pittsburgh perspective. Rodgers, the last couple years, has started slow. We'll get into that from the Jets' perspective. You just don't expect the offense to be a crazy high-flying offense all season long. And week one, you're going to see some rust. So defensive battle, I think you look for tomorrow. So the under is something that I like. And the Steelers, a very close under 3 at 2.5-point favorites. ESPN Analytics matchup predictor in this one is giving the Steelers a 59.3% chance of winning, and they're giving the New York Jets a 40.4% chance. So clearly, while they're not big underdogs, the New York Jets are the home underdogs in this 1 o'clock CBS tomorrow afternoon. Injury report for both teams here. For the Jets and Steelers, not a crazy amount to report. Both teams healthy going into this one. For the Jets, Issa Pohl will miss this game with an ankle. AVT, the big news with the triceps. We knew that, though, going in. He's done for the year. Big blow to the team. Chuck Okorafor is questionable with a hand injury. Sauce Gardner will be out there. He popped up on the injury list dealing with an injury that he's kind of dealt with the final last stretch here of the summer. He'll be ready to roll, though, so that's good. The AVT injury, though, is the big blow. You'll see some shuffling on that offensive line. Most likely Tittman moving on over to right guard and Josh Myers slotting in at center. From the Steelers injury side of things, Derek Harmon, the rookie, will miss this one with a knee injury, and a couple players questionable. Skylar Thompson with a hamstring and Nick Herbig also with a hamstring. I will note one thing. It's not an injury, but contract related. Cam Hayward said yesterday that he doesn't know if he's going to play, something that's still kind of up in the air. He has practice. He did miss one day, though. Seemed like it was a vet rest day, but has missed some time. It's been contract negotiations. No guarantee that he plays. So it's not an injury, but it's something to keep an eye on. That would be a huge blow for the Steelers from that defensive line perspective if Cam Hayward is not out there and they can't reach an agreement and he doesn't take the field due to the contract situation. So it's something to keep an eye on really all the way up until kickoff tomorrow. All right, let's get into the good stuff now, and that is what the New York Jets need to do to take care of business at home tomorrow afternoon and pick up a win in the first game of the Aaron Glenn era. We'll start here on the offensive side of the football, 3 keys to the game, and then we'll switch on over defensively. This first one is obvious, but I want to also add a little bit more onto that. That's establishing the run, right? This is a New York Jets team, key number 1 here. They're going to be a run-first team. We all know that. There's no surprise in that. Everybody knows that. The minute they signed Justin Fields, what they've done with this offense, when you look at this running back room and the potential it has with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and even Isaiah Davis, Justin Fields, his ability as a runner, and you look at the potential of this offensive line, while dampered by the AVT injury, you still look at this offensive line as something that should be a strength for this team. It's huge tomorrow for them to get off to a very quick start on the ground, and that's really going to be the case in all of these games because they're going to have to run the football effectively in order to open up the pass, right? This is a Jets team last year that could not run the football at all, and they barely ran it. at that. They only ran the ball 363 times last year, which was 32nd in the NFL. That was dead last. The next closest team was the Las Vegas Raiders, who ran it 380 times, which was 31st. That's 17 more carries. That's almost an entire game worth of carries that the New York Jets were behind the rest of the league last season from a run game standpoint. So bottom of the league in that area. And they were bottom of the league in just efficiency. 1,561 rushing yards, 31st. Those 91.8 yards per game, well below 100 yards there, 31st. And they were tied for 31st with only 8 rushing touchdowns. What I really mean, though, by establishing the run, this is a Steelers defense that is a very strong unit. For years, we all know the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are usually their foundation. They go off their defense. And when you look at that interior, look at the pieces on the outside, they have a lot of really, really good pieces on that defensive line. This is a unit that ranked 6th in the NFL last year in stopping the run. So they were comfortably inside the top 10, just outside the top 5 in the NFL in stopping the run. And what's so important tomorrow for the Jets, and this is going to tie into my 2 other keys, it's about not just establishing the run, but consistently wearing down this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I'm talking about consistent 4 to 5 to 6 yard run plays, especially on the early downs. First down and 10, pick up 4 to 5. Put yourself in a second and manageable situation where if you run it again and you pick up another 4 to 5, you're either a first down or you're in a 3rd and short situation, which is where you want to be if you're the New York Jets. This is a team that is not set up to have success when they're in 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. You have those 2nd and short, 3rd and short situations, 3rd and intermediate, 2nd and intermediate, even that. Those type of situations, you can have success then as a passing game. You can really be efficient as an offense. When you get behind, 3rd and 8, 2nd and 8, and you don't start out early drives well from a run game perspective, it's going to be tough for this offense to have success. And this is just a team last year. You talk about the physicality, grinding teams down, wearing teams down. Go out there tomorrow, first drive of the game. Why not start fast and have a long 9, 10, 11 play drive where it's just run, and it's just 4, 5 yards, run after run after run, and it's 2nd and 4, first down. Then it's 3rd and 2, first down. And you just wear this Steelers defense down, especially if they're without Cam Hayward. They're already out Derek Harmon. That's 2 bodies now on that defensive line. They're out. So they're already into their depth. You wear this defense down early on. That is a huge recipe for success for this New York Jets offense. And that's where you're then able to open up the pass, and you're able to see, hopefully, Justin Fields be able to make some plays and take advantage of some mismatches that this New York Jets team will have in their advantage. So you got to establish the run, wear them down, and in 3rd and short situations, heck, 4th and short situations, Braylon Allen, that's your short yardage downhill back. Justin Fields as well. Tush push, quarterback sneaks, design quarterback runs, read options. We all know what Breece Hall, I still have high expectations this year for Breece Hall. I said it. I think he's going to have 1,000 yards. I'm a Breece Hall believer still. I know a lot of Jet fans don't believe. I do. I think in this offense, he's going to have a big year. Establish the run, consistent yards, wear this defense down. That's all where it starts for this Jets offense. That's key number 1. Key number 2, kind of bouncing off of key number 1, but from a pass game perspective, it's taking advantage of the Garrett Wilson and Jalen Ramsey matchup that we're going to see when the ball gets kicked off tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Get Garrett Wilson involved, take advantage of that mismatch. We all know what Garrett Wilson, right, has been able to do in his 3 seasons as a Jet, despite everything around him, all the quarterbacks, all, the 2 different play callers, all of the dysfunction. For him to go out there and do what he's been able to do, playing all 51 possible games. Last year, 101 receptions, 1,104 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was tied for 7th in the NFL in receptions, 14th in yards. When you look at the career numbers, 279 receptions, 3,249 yards, 14 touchdowns in his 3 seasons. This is a guy that has been the definition of consistency, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, team captain, a guy that you want to build your team around, well-deserved every penny that he received in this contract. And now you look for him this year to go out and be one of the biggest pieces in this receiving game because there's not a whole lot around him, as we know. And he gets a really good opportunity tomorrow, a very favorable matchup early on. You look at this secondary from the Steelers, and you see the names of Darius Slay. You see the names of Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., who's only in year 3, 25 years old. He's the young piece. He's a really good piece for that defense. But Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey don't really strike much fear into me. And I'll even talk a little bit more about Darius Slay here when we get to my third key. But from Garrett Wilson's perspective, you've got to take advantage of the Jalen Ramsey mismatch because that's what it is tomorrow. Garrett Wilson has dominated Jalen Ramsey in the last 2 seasons that he's been in the division. You look at what Garrett Wilson was able to do last year against Jalen Ramsey. He had 9 targets, 7 catches. That's a 77% completion percentage when the ball was thrown his way against Jalen Ramsey. 137 yards, 6 first downs, 58 yards after the catch. So 42% of those 137 receiving yards came after the catch for Garrett Wilson against Jalen Ramsey. And when you look at Jalen Ramsey's numbers against Garrett Wilson, not only is that what he led up, he also had a pass interference. He did have 1 pass breakup. And just some other Ramsey numbers that I'll tie into here because this is a part of the key, the discussion, and what I want to see the Jets do with Garrett tomorrow. 14 missed tackles last year for Jalen Ramsey. That was a career high. His 19.4% missed tackle rate, a career high. And his 43 Pro Football Focus tackling grade was the lowest of his career. Jalen Ramsey throughout his career has been known when he was at his peak, and not even really at his peak. Even 2 years ago, 2023, he was one of the better tacklers in the NFL. Last year, his tackling dropped off in a big way. And Garrett Wilson made a miss a couple times in those 2 games against the Miami Dolphins with those 7 catches. His ability to rack up a significant amount of yards after the catch, like I said, 58 against Jalen Ramsey last year, a lot of it was making a miss. And what made it so dangerous was Garrett beat him intermediate, he beat him vertical, and he beat him short. He beat him on a lot of screens. And I think that's something to keep an eye on tomorrow when you talk about getting Garrett Wilson involved. Couple short, quick passes, screens to Garrett Wilson against Jalen Ramsey is a recipe for success. You saw a couple screens last year that Garrett Wilson caught against Jalen Ramsey, and his ability to make him miss in the open field was eye-popping. It was huge. It was a huge factor in his success against Ramsey last season. So get Garrett in space against Ramsey, get him in the open field against Ramsey. He has shown the ability to make him miss. Jalen Ramsey's tackling as a whole has fallen off. He's 30 years old. He's lost a step. He doesn't have that same speed. He doesn't have that same burst, that same technique. He's nearing the end. He's not the same player. Garrett Wilson's taken advantage of it. Whether it's a short, quick route where he can make him miss in space, make him miss quickly, and pick up yards after the catch, or it's vertical or intermediate stuff where he just beats him clean on his route. Either way, Garrett Wilson all day tomorrow against Jalen Ramsey. Get him involved early on. And I talk about kind of tying that into the establishing the run. You establish the run and put this offense in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 situations. That really allows you to open up the screen game, open up kind of the mesh concepts, the slants, those short, quicker routes where he can beat Jalen Ramsey that way, as opposed to 3rd and 10, and everything's got to be more vertical, stretching the field a bit more. So Garrett Wilson, get him involved early and often against Ramsey tomorrow. Take advantage of that. And my final offensive key is a little bit contradictory to what I just said, but it also kind of ties into the whole game plan. Once you really start to get involved and really get kind of in a groove with this offense, I expect, right, Garrett a couple times, run game, kind of get things going that way. Third key, take chances. Go vertical. Stretch the field. Take some risks. Calculated risks is the way I like to look at it. Like I said with this secondary, Jalen Ramsey, 30 years old. He's lost a step. Darius Slay is 34 years old. Not the same player. Joey Porter Jr., just from a vertical perspective, is not is a guy that you can beat over the top. They, in terms of the speed in their secondary, you can get behind them. And their safeties are solid. And I know even though they lost Minka Fitzpatrick, their safeties, Sean Elliott, also have Juan Thornhill. They've got some pieces back there, but from a cornerback perspective, their speed, you can get behind them. You can beat them vertically. I look at Arian Smith as somebody to look for when it talks about stretching the field. Like I said, Garrett Wilson as well, somebody that you look for stretching the field. But Arian Smith specifically, just because he's kind of that guy you expect some of those vertical packages, taking some chances. And you also just talk about keeping the defense guessing. This is a defense that's going to expect the run. And they're also probably going to expect a lot of the short, intermediate passes to get the offense going. You keep the defense guessing. You can also kind of catch this defense off guard with a chance downfield, with a 40-yard bomb downfield, taking a risk downfield. And this also ties back into just, again, having those 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 situations where that opens up for those quick passes to Garrett Wilson to convert, but it also gives you the opportunity to take risks, because even if you don't capitalize, okay, it's a 3rd and 4 or it's a 3rd and 3. It's still a high percentage 3rd down conversion rate for this defense if it doesn't work. So calculated, smart chances downfield. Take some risks. Vertical. This has been an offense that's been in an 8 to 10 yard box the last couple years. Break through that. Arian Smith deep. Garrett Wilson deep. Take chances. Spread the field, or push the ball up the field, and go vertical against a secondary that you can get behind from a speed perspective. That's my final key on offense. So 3 keys offensively: establish the run, get Garrett Wilson involved early against Jalen Ramsey, and take some chances. Moving on to the defensive side of the football now. It all starts with pressuring, getting pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and blitzing the heck out of Aaron Rodgers. I've said this a couple times. What I want to see tomorrow, when I'm inside that stadium, I want to see first play of the game, first play on defense, whether the Jets kick off first, they get the ball first. The first play that Aaron Rodgers drops back to pass, I want to see the New York Jets blitz him. I want to see a cornerback blitz, maybe a safety blitz, whatever. I want to see a blitz right out of the gate tomorrow against Aaron Rodgers. And I keep going back to 2022 when Sauce Gardner blitzed Teddy Bridgewater on the first play of the game. And that is something that tomorrow I want to see. First play of the game, send a blitz right at Aaron Rodgers. Get to him, get him on the ground, whether it's a sack, forced incompletion, whatever. Get him rattled from the first play of the game. Because something that we know about not only this defense, they're going to blitz a lot, but Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't handle the blitz well. And another thing we know about Aaron Rodgers is in his last 3 starts, not counting the torn Achilles game in week 1, going back to 2021, 21, 22, 24 last season, he is 0-3 in his last 3 week 1 openers. And he has played very poorly in those last 3 week 1 openers. This is a guy who was not a part of the offseason program. He did not play any preseason games. He was there for training camp. That was it. It's a new offense. He never worked with Arthur Smith before. New pieces around him. You blitz him, get pressure on him early, get him rattled early. That's potentially the biggest factor the difference in a win or loss tomorrow is if they can get to Rodgers and specifically get to him early. And I want to give you some numbers last year just to kind of take a trip back to last season and even just some things that Glenn has done from his time in Detroit against Rodgers. When you look at Rodgers last year, two games that always stuck out to me when I was breaking this one down and getting ready when it came to him handling the blitz was the Vikings game in London and the Denver Broncos game at home. That rain, yuck, disgusting 10-9 loss, right? Those two games, Rodgers, the offense played really poorly. And it's not a coincidence that those came against two of some of the heaviest blitzing teams in the NFL. The Vikings last year blitzed 277 times. That was first in the NFL. They led the league in blitz percentage at 38.9%. When Aaron Rodgers faced the Vikings in London, 3 interceptions the Jets lost. He could not handle the blitz. Same thing against Denver. Denver last year blitzed 208 times. They were 4th in the NFL, but 1st in the AFC. And they had a 29.5% blitz rate, which was 7th. One of the best defenses in football. Blitzed a ton. The Jets lost that game 10-9. Aaron Rodgers and the offense looked horrible. So the two teams last year that the Jets faced that blitzed the most looked awful. Aaron Rodgers struggles against the blitz. He also struggles a ton in week 1. And when you look at Aaron Glenn, last season the Lions blitzed 237 times, which was 3rd, and their 34.6% blitz rate was 2nd. They are going to blitz. They are going to send the house and do it early and often. Aaron Rodgers in his last 3 week 1 games, minus the torn Achilles game, because he played 4 plays. That doesn't count. The games he played fully, 0-3, 38-3 loss in 2021 against the Saints, 23-7 loss in 2022 against the Vikings, and in the ugly 32-19 loss that we all witnessed last year against the San Francisco 49ers. In total, Rodgers led teams in week 1 since 2021. In those 3 starts have been outscored 93-29. His offenses only averaging 9.6 points per game. And in those 3 games, Rodgers has completed 60.2% of his passes for 495 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. He's had 15 or less completions in 2 of those 3 games. He's thrown interceptions in all 3 of the games. And in all 3 of those games, he's also been under 200 yards passing. He has been horrific in week 1 games. And he's been horrific against the blitz. And it's a new offense where he has not played in a game environment yet with any of these guys. Get pressure on Rodgers early. Make his life miserable early on. Just some other numbers when it comes to Aaron Rodgers against the blitz. Last season, 6.1 yards per attempt, negative 0.06 EPA per dropback, and a minus 13.1% DVOA against the blitz. Without the blitz, numbers are much better. 6.9 yards per attempt, 0.07 EPA per dropback, and negative 0.9% DVOA. Jets also expect them to run a lot of man coverage. Aaron Glenn ran the most man coverage last year in the NFL, and the 2 times that he shut Rodgers down held the Packers to 12.5 points per game in the 2 games they played in 2022 as the Lions DC. He played a ton of man and blitzed them. Rodgers against man last year really struggled. 6.3 yards per attempt, negative 0.02 EPA per dropback, and a negative 7.4% DVOA. You look at Rodgers against zone coverage, much better. 7.1 yards per attempt, 0.08 EPA per dropback, and a negative 3.1% DVOA. So man coverage, blitz, get to Rodgers, pressure him early on, make life miserable for the 41-year-old, soon-to-be 42-year-old in December, quarterback tomorrow afternoon early on. Last year went out there, right? 13-21, 167 yards, had the touchdown pick against the Niners, resulted in a loss, and that's been the case here the last couple of week 1s for Rodgers. Moving on now to my second defensive key. You know, the big storyline going into tomorrow, one of the biggest storylines will be DK Metcalf, Sauce Gardner, and what this secondary can do against him. And that is totally a big matchup, and I'll get to that here in a little bit. But to me, what I'm more worried about and what I think needs to be talked about more is this defense needing to contain Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, right? Jonnu Smith came over in the Jalen Ramsey Miami Dolphins blockbuster trade, and he's coming off of a massive season. And Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback that has used tight ends, his history-wise. He targets the tight ends. He looks their way. And you're going to see a lot of Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith tomorrow. Pittsburgh's offense is a little bit similar to the Jets in the fact that outside of DK Metcalf, there's tons of questions behind him. And that's the same thing with Garrett Wilson. Outside of Garrett Wilson from a wide receiver position, tons of questions. Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, Gibson, Tyler Johnson. It's very meh. Alan Lazard, assuming Tyler Johnson's active, it's very meh. Same thing with Steelers. Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. There's some young pieces there, but lots of unproven. Scotty Miller, it's very meh. So similar to the Jets, how you kind of have to piece it together with Brees and Mason Taylor, Pittsburgh's going to do that. Some, running backs as well. Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson, even Kenneth Gainwell. A nice trio there that we'll get to here in a second. But expect to see a lot of 12 personnel tomorrow. Expect to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. Expect to see a lot of Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith on the field, where that's able to take some of the attention off of DK Metcalf and spread things out a little bit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what's so big about this matchup is just this is a Jets defense that has struggled so much against tight ends. So much against tight ends these last couple years. They have really, really struggled. When you look at Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, you're talking about 2 top 15 tight ends on the field at one time when you look at their 2024 numbers. And that is really dangerous potentially for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Freiermuth last season, 65 receptions, 78 targets, 653 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 yards per reception. The 65 receptions were a career high. It was tied for 8th in the NFL. He was 14th in targets. Arthur Smith used him. 12th in yards and tied for 3rd in touchdowns. When you look at Jonnu Smith, 88 receptions, 111 targets, 884 yards, 10 yards per reception, and 8 touchdowns. He had career highs in receptions and targets and yards and touchdowns as well. He had career highs in every statistical category. Or apologize, the tight ends, he was tied for a career high. He had also 8 in 2020. But still, career highs still in every area. He was also 4th among tight ends in receptions, 4th in targets, 4th in yards, tied for 2nd in touchdowns. He was one of the best tight ends in a breakout season last year for the Miami Dolphins, and he had a ton of success against the Jets. In 2 games against the Jets last year, he had 12 receptions on 16 targets for 100 yards, 8.3 yards per reception, and 2 touchdowns. The Jets couldn't slow him down. That can't happen tomorrow. They've got to be able to contain these tight ends. I'm more worried about these tight ends, these 12 personnel sets, gashing this Jets defense than I am DK Metcalf, to be honest with you. And maybe that's just the trust I have in Sauce in this cornerback room. And it's just maybe the track record more so with this Jets defense not being able to stop tight ends, struggling against tight ends, struggling against Jonnu Smith twice last year, a guy who they saw and couldn't contain. They've got to be able to do that tomorrow. You look at Quincy Williams, you look at Jamien Sherwood, especially Jamien Sherwood, a guy who's really, really good in coverage. And you even look at these safeties as well, sliding down, safety help as well, picking up some of these tight ends. Andre Sisco is a guy you hope has a very good game tomorrow. He's one of those pieces where he's going to, force turnovers, get interceptions. He's also going to make some mistakes. He's going to get beat. We saw that against the Giants. He's going to have some really wow plays, and he's going to have some plays where you're scratching your head and he gets you really frustrated. That's kind of the Andre Sisco experience. So tomorrow, hopefully have more of the good from Andre Sisco, and you're able to slow down these 2 tight ends because they're going to look their way a lot as they have to find some production from a pass catching perspective outside of just DK Metcalf. And my final key for the New York Jets on defense, it's slowing down the run, and it's kind of tying into 2 things, slowing down the run and getting off the field. Jalen Warren just signed a contract extension. He's your number 1 back. They also have Caleb Johnson, the rookie out of Iowa, and Kenneth Gainwell, a veteran who has been with Philly the last couple years, now joins on with the Pittsburgh Steelers in year number 5, former 5th-round pick. And they're all kind of different running backs, but Jaylen Warren is leading the way. And when you look at Jaylen Warren so far in his career, he's been, the number 2. He's been behind Najee Harris, but when he's been asked to get the ball, he's been really solid. 346 carries, 1,674 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns in his career. From a receiving perspective, he's popped a little bit as well. 127 receptions, 894 yards. Total, 473 total touches, 2,568 total yards, and 6 touchdowns, and 5.8 yards per attempt, receiving and rushing combined. This is a player who in 2023, in 17 games, averaged 5.3 yards per attempt and had 784 yards that year. He's a 4.8 yards per attempt rusher in his career. That's almost 5 yards an attempt. In the opportunities he's gotten as essentially the number 2 in this offense, he has done a really good job, and he fits kind of that Arthur Smith run scheme. And one thing we know about this Jets defense is their struggles against the run. Steelers last year, led by Najee Harris. We're 11th from a rushing perspective now, led by Jaylen Warren. But this is a defense that has struggled against the run immensely. And last year was infuriating on so many levels. And you look at this defense, you look at the interior, you look at Harrison Phillips. He's got to play a big role tomorrow in stopping the run. And all season long, not just tomorrow, but all season long, as that defensive tackle number 2 next to Quinnen Williams, that run stuffer that can also have some of those cleanup sacks, a sack or 2 maybe here and there, but that's your run stuffer. That's your veteran piece next to Quinnen Williams. Really good trade by Darren Muji. He's got to go out there and have a big game. This interior's got to be really big. And defensively, just from a tackling perspective as well, big against the run game. Wrap up, finish, tackle. If he gets to the second level, you got to bring him down. You can't miss tackles. But more importantly, just from the interior defense line perspective, you got to win those one-on-ones in the interior, and you got to clog those running lanes. Harrison Phillips is a big part of that. Quinnen Williams as well, who actually had a bit of a down year last year. From a run-stopping perspective, he's got to have a big game. Jaylen Warren, you can't let go out there and dictate things for Pittsburgh, because this is also a Pittsburgh team that's going to have to establish the run and be more of a run-first team as well. And I also tie in the whole get off the field thing, because this is a Jets defense last year that for so many times, and you hope things flip this year, where the Jets are the team that's kind of dictating the pace of the game and wearing teams down. But last year, it was always the Jets getting worn down. And it was the Jets that were on the field forever. And these long drives that just wear down a defense, that can't happen. And that happened so much last year. That's got to change. And I want to bring this stat up just from opening game last year, because Jaylen Warren is not, he's not one of these top elite running backs in the NFL, but he's done some good things in the opportunities he's gotten. And it hasn't taken much to beat this Jets defense from a run stopping perspective. Last year, Jordan Mason came in for Christian McCaffrey, right? CMC missed the first week. He ran all over the Jets. And the Jets in that game in week 1, and I bring just up week 1 just because how much of a disaster that was and how things have to change. The Jets' time of possession, 49ers had the ball for 38 minutes and 40 seconds. Jets had the ball for 21 minutes and 20 seconds. That's a 17-minute and 20-second difference. That's a whole quarter, essentially, of command from the San Francisco 49ers with a backup running back. That can't happen tomorrow. That can't happen this season. Slow down Jaylen Warren, get off the field, stop the run, finally have that area of this defense change. Talk about getting back in the mix as a top 10 defense and building a new identity on this team. One of those identities winning in the trenches, not just offensively, but defensively as well. It's a team that last year, time of possession overall, 31 minutes to about 29 minutes. They got beat the entire year. Get off the field, slow down the run. So 3 defensive keys: pressure, blitz Aaron Rodgers early, contain Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. That's one of my biggest worries. And slow down the run game, get off the field. A lot of people have actually asked me, like, DK Metcalf, Sauce. And again, maybe it's just my faith in Sauce, but I'm more worried about the tight ends hurting us than I am DK or even the run game for that matter. Run game, I am concerned, but from a pass game perspective, it's Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, especially Jonnu Smith, because this is a team that couldn't contain him last year. And I get new coaching staff, new scheme, all that stuff, but we have all we have is the last couple of years to base off of what this team needs to be better at. All right, now moving on to some X factors, matchups to watch here. We haven't spoke on this player yet, but when you talk about establishing the run, you talk about the pass game, you talk about pretty much anything tomorrow, it's going to start with Armand Membou. Armand Membou is my offensive X factor for this New York Jets team. He has got a massive, massive test against TJ Watt. For a rookie to go out there in week 1, you would have liked a softer landing spot, but this is welcome to the NFL, Armand Membou. Week 1, you're out there not only, and this is what stings really more as well, but not only does ABT, who's going to be a big piece for Armand Membou, having a veteran like that, a steady piece next to you, not only does he now go down, you have Joe Tippmann, but oh yeah, you're facing TJ Watt. Armand Membou, TJ Watt tomorrow. Not only is it a matchup to watch, but Membou's my X factor. He is a huge factor in what this New York Jets team can do, not only through the air, but from a run game. ABT out is a huge blow from the perspective that this was a team that was running through the right side a lot during camp, having a ton of success behind the right side a lot in camp. Membou's now got to really take another step in terms of just from a run blocking perspective tomorrow as well. TJ Watt, he's that do-it-all pass rusher. Not only a guy that gets to the quarterback, but stopping the run all around, an elite player. 108 sacks in his career. He's elite. Armand Membou, you have to find a way to just slow him down. And whether that's sliding tight end help, fullback help him out. If he's struggling, send help over to his side. He's going to lose some battles, but win some battles, hold your own. When you look at Membou overall in the preseason, he had 2 good games and then the 1 bad game against the Giants. And that's, I guess, the big question is when he faced the Giants and he faced Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, all of those pieces, he struggled. Not only in the joint practices, but in the game. In the game, he had 9 pass blocking snaps. He allowed a pressure, 4.2 pass block grade and a 41 run blocking grade. It was an ugly game. It was a rough game. It was a rough week for Membou, but it was a key learning moment for him. You hope he learned from that and now can take that here against another elite pass rusher in TJ Watt. You look at what Membou was able to do in the Green Bay and Philly game. He looked really good. Green Bay, no sacks, no pressures, 70.7 overall grade, a 77.9 pass blocking grade on 10 pass blocking snaps. And then against Philly to close out the preseason, another really promising start. 12 snaps, 7 pass blocking snaps out of those 12, 77.9 Pro Football Focus grade. He had a run block and a pass block grade over 78, and no pressures, no sacks. So he had a strong summer. He struggled a bit against the Giants, struggled a bit against some of those top pass rushers, which you expect for a rookie. But against Green Bay in the preseason, Philly in the preseason, and just in the practices in general, he had a good camp. There's going to be growing pains. But tomorrow, just hold your own. Slide help over there from a coaching staff perspective. You can't just leave him on an island if he's getting beat play after play, especially if he's getting beat in the run game. Armand Membou tomorrow, offensive X factor. He is one of the biggest pieces in whether or not this Jets team can win. If TJ Watt is all over this run game and he is all over Justin Fields, they have no chance. So Armand Membou, offensive X factor. From the defensive side of the football, a couple different X factors here, actually. I'm going to throw one out here. Quinnen Williams, I'm going to put out here as the main X factor. The reason I say that is I'm expecting hopefully a big season here from Quinnen Williams, a year where Quinnen Williams gets back to the sack production. I talked about stopping the run. Quinnen Williams, Harrison Phillips, it starts with them. But I also want to throw Quinnen Williams out here in the Aaron Rodgers getting to the quarterback perspective, let's see a Quinnen Williams 2022 Green Bay Packers performance. That's what I want to see tomorrow. If you don't remember that game, that was a 27-10 Jets win. That was the Sauce Gardner walking off the field with the cheesehead, right? A couple weeks before that season collapsed. That was one of the peak moments of that 2022 team. But in that game, Quinnen Williams against Aaron Rodgers, 2 sacks. He also had a forced fumble in that game, 5 total tackles. He dominated. It was one of the most dominant games in his career. So tomorrow, X Factor, Quinnen Williams. Not just stopping the run, but go out there and dominate against Aaron Rodgers. Get to Aaron Rodgers like you were able to do in that Green Bay game when this team completely shut down Aaron Rodgers. You talk about getting to Rodgers. You talk about getting to the quarterback. Will McDonald, Jermaine, when he's out there, Quinnen, those are your big pieces. Get involved. He's an X Factor. Linebacker safety is as well when you talk about containing these tight ends. And Sauce Gardner, when you look at the DK Metcalf matchup, that's a big one there. In terms of some matchups to watch, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Ramsey, that's one of the big ones on offense. Talked about that early on as a key to the game. And then, of course, Armand Membu and TJ Watt. From a defensive perspective, Sauce Gardner, DK Metcalf, that's a big matchup to watch. And one other in the trenches to keep an eye on. And this is what's really could honestly dictate this game as well. You know, the Steelers have a bit of the mismatch when it comes to TJ Watt, Armand Membu. But on the flip side, the Jets have their own mismatch. Will McDonald versus Broderick Jones is a matchup tomorrow that you've got to take advantage of if you're the New York Jets. Will McDonald last season, 10.5 sacks, 61 pressures, tied for 12th in the NFL with the 10.5 sacks, 13th in pressures. Implement himself easily as a top 15, borderline top 10 pass rusher. The next step now for Will McDonald is better against the run and getting to that 12 sack mark. And I think he will. I predict 12 sacks this year for Will McDonald. Put on some size, improve against the run, and that's where you really become one of the elite pass rushers, one of the elite edge rushers in the NFL. He had a sack last year against Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is going to see a lot more of Will McDonald this year or tomorrow. He flipped to the left side. He switched to left tackle. You know, first 2 years of his career, he played at right tackle, flipped over to left tackle, got benched last year, actually. Broderick Jones, I think the 2023 draft night trade with the Steelers jumping in front of the Jets, all signs pointed towards the Jets taking Broderick Jones. They didn't. Patriots traded with the Steelers. Steelers jumped up, took Broderick Jones. It felt like in the moment Jets were selling for Will McDonald, but in the long run here, the Jets have avoided a major mistake with that Broderick Jones trade and instead getting Will McDonald. And you look for Will McDonald tomorrow to dominate. Broderick Jones has been horrible. He has been one of the worst tackles in the NFL since he's entered the league. Last year alone, he had a 58.5 Pro Football Focus grade and a 54.6 pass block grade. Again, he got benched last season. That's how bad it got for the second-year tackle. 10 penalties last year, which was 8 more than the 2 he had in his rookie year. He also allowed 10 sacks, which was the 3rd most in the NFL, and 43 pressures, the 7th most in the NFL among tackles. Benched at one point early in the season, did come back, struggled. Now makes the switch to left tackle. This is his first start at left tackle. The reports out of Pittsburgh, he's looked good at left tackle, but this is his first start. It's now a real game against Will McDonald. That's a matchup that I love for the New York Jets tomorrow afternoon. Membu, TJ Watt, Will McDonald, Broderick Jones. Huge matchups on the edges, on the defensive end tackles of these offenses and defenses that you look for tomorrow that could potentially really dictate the game. And one more thing, Cam Hayward, right? Might miss this one. Just his impact. Steelers last year, when Cam Hayward was on the field, they allowed 3.8 yards per attempt, which would be second in the NFL last season. Without Cam Hayward, they allowed 4.8 yards per attempt, which was 29th. So their run defense with Cam Hayward compared to without Cam Hayward, not that should be much of a surprise, but it is a big difference. You go from one of the better defense, you go from number 2 to 29th. That's a massive, massive drop off. So no Cam Hayward would be a big plus for this Jets run game. So that's it. That's a preview. Now my prediction. I'm going with the Jets in this one. I'm taking the under on the 37.5, like I said. Give me the Jets plus 2.5. Give me the Jets to win. 17-13 Jets. Week 1, Aaron Glenn leads his team to a victory. Let's go. Beat Rodgers, beat the Steelers, take care of business, get to 1-0, and get this fan base feeling good. How do you change cultures? You win football games. It's been an excellent offseason for Aaron Glenn. He's pressed all the right buttons. The next step now is proving it on the field. You got to win games. You've got to show that this team is headed in the right direction on the field, and it starts tomorrow, and it starts with the New York Jets victory. I really do think the Jets win this game. I think matchups-wise, there's a lot of areas that you like where the Jets match up against Pittsburgh. I'm taking the Jets here. 17-13 Jets win. They get to 1-0. Aaron Glenn gets his first win, and we're fired up on the recap pod tomorrow. Let's go, baby. Jets, Jets. Cannot wait. Jets football is back. I'll be in the building, like I said, tomorrow afternoon. I'll be back inside the world's largest AC unit, MetLife Stadium. It's going to be great. And we'll be back tomorrow with a recap pod. We'll be a little bit later because I got to get back from the stadium, traffic, all that stuff. So we'll be a little bit later, but we'll have my recap pod out tomorrow. As always, the post-game show recapping all of my biggest takeaways from the game. Hopefully, we're recapping a New York Jets win. I think we will be. 17-13 Jets. Let's go, baby. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on this game? Jets, Steelers, your X factors, your keys, your matchups to watch, your prediction. Let me know all down below. Appreciate you all as always. And until next time, Jets, Jets.